When you've given everything but feel forgotten, have you ever woken up one morning with a strange feeling of emptiness? A silent pain that you can't name, like a part of you is gradually faded away over time. You sit in that stillness and contemplate. Many decades have passed, years of giving, sacrificing and holding on to everything. For your family, your relationships, your career, you are the glue. The person who appeared, remained strong and continued to walk. But now, as life begins to change, a silent question lingers in your mind. After all I've given, what do I have left? Life passes quickly. Like morning mist rising from the river, it disappears when the sunlight shines on it. And when you look back, you realize how much you devoted to others. Every ounce of energy, every late night, every silent act of love, you gave it all. You nurture, support, build and hold things together, always putting the needs of others above your own. But now, as the pace slows down and the world moves faster, you're standing at a quiet intersection, and you can't help but ask, where did all that energy go? And more importantly, who is paying me back? Buddhism offers a gentle but profound truth. Attachment to expectations leads to suffering. Most of us, without even realizing it, live with the silent belief that love, care, and loyalty will eventually become complete, that if we give enough, one day the world will respond in kind. But life doesn't always work out like that. People grow, change, and go in different directions, especially the younger generation, who are busy building their own lives, lost in dreams and struggles. If you spend your later years chasing their validation, trying to stay relevant in a world that no longer pauses, you may find yourself exhausted, heartbroken, and quietly resentful. So what is the answer? It's not about chasing recognition or clinging to relationships that no longer feed your soul. The answer seems simple but can be life-changing. You must choose for yourself, not from a place of selfishness, but from a place of deep wisdom, the kind that only comes from a life lived to the fullest. Now is the time to take back the energy you freely gave away, to go back inside, to tend to parts of yourself that you've long ignored, to find peace, not in isolation, but in solitude, a spiritual return to oneself, to what really matters. Because ultimately, the greatest act of love you can offer the world is to love yourself first. This idea may feel foreign, it may even be uncomfortable, but it touches on something deeply real. Think of the older man who was once a strong pillar of the family, supplier, guardian. During his younger years, he worked tirelessly to ensure his children had every opportunity. Early mornings, late nights, countless sacrifices, his love remains unchanged, though often unspoken. And like many people, he assumed, perhaps a little naively, that one day when he needed them, they would be there for him too. But time passes, his phone stopped ringing as usual. The family dinners he once hosted became rare, replaced by hurried text messages and vague promises of visits that never came. Now he spends his days watching the world pass by his window, gradually realizing a painful truth. Love, even when given freely, does not always respond as we expect. This is not bitterness, it is impermanence. As the Buddha taught, anicca, everything changes. Relationships, people, situations, they evolve, drift, and sometimes disappear. What once felt like a deep connection can gradually unravel into silence and distance. But here's the powerful shift. When we stop expecting love to come back the same way we gave it, we begin to free ourselves. We begin to understand that true peace comes not from being seen, but from seeing ourselves, from accepting that our love, care, and sacrifice are meaningful, no matter what we get in return. And when we make that change, we don't retreat from the world. We finally begin to live in it on our own terms. So today, if you feel invisible, if you ask, what about me? You are not alone, but you're not helpless either. You have the right to choose friends. Not just because you've earned it, but because your peace is worth protecting. Your energy is worth reclaiming. And this life, your life, is still yours to shape. The silent contract we all wrote, and why it breaks our hearts. We often tell ourselves that kindness is reciprocated in kind, that loyalty ensures loyalty, that if we give altruistically, the universe, or at least those to whom we have given, will one day return the favor. But life, like a river, does not follow the paths we imagine. It twists and turns, charting paths we never planned, sometimes away from people we hoped would remain close. This idea of reciprocity, that what we give will be received back equally, is one of the most quietly painful illusions in human relationships. It's a silent contract we write in our heads, but no one else signs it. Take May's story. She is the type of woman that every family relies on, a silent breadwinner, who never asks for much. From an early age, she took on the role of caregiver, helping raise her siblings when her parents were in trouble. Later she put all her heart and soul into her marriage, becoming a steadfast partner to overcome all storms. And then there are the children, her greatest pride. She gave them everything, her time, her dreams. She was always the person others turned to in times of crisis, the nurturer, the healer, the person who held the family together when everything else seemed to fall apart. But time, as always, passes. The laughter that once filled her house was now silent. Her children, now grown and with families of their own, are busy, caught up in careers, obligations, and the whirlwind of modern life. May would call, but the conversations were brief, and often hurried. "I'll come visit you soon," they said, but early never come. At first she was heartbroken. She questioned herself, reminiscing about the past, wondering if she had done something wrong. How could the love she gave so freely disappear into the void? It felt like a betrayal, like life had somehow broken its promise. But over time, and through many long nights of contemplation, May understood something profound. Her suffering is not only due to the absence of her children, but also due to the weight of her expectation. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment to people, to results, to the way we think about life should to be. We believe that love must follow a set of rules. If I give, I will receive. But love does not obey the laws of justice that we impose on it. It flows, it fades, it transforms. And the more we try to hold it in the narrow jar of our expectations, the more it stagnates, turning into resentment, bitterness, or grief. In the end, May made peace with this fact. She doesn't love to be loved in return. She fell in love because that was who she was, and that in itself is enough. She began to turn her focus inward, not on bitterness, but on wisdom. She still cares about her family, still has a warm embrace, but now she no longer sits and waits by the phone, waiting for it to ring. Her days become focused on what brings she joy, gardening in the morning sunlight, reading old novels with a cup of tea, rediscovering a quiet rhythm of life that doesn't revolve around meeting the needs of others. True generosity looks like this: giving without strings attached, loving without proof or reciprocation. It's not about giving up on people or not expecting anything. It's about releasing tight expectations and finding peace in the simplicity of life. Because life will change, everyone will drift. Some of the people we love will return, others will not. And that's not failure, that's just the nature of things. So instead of asking why don't they return it, we can start asking, have I fully loved yet? Am I staying true to who I am? Let love be like the wind, felt but not held. Let kindness be like sunlight, given generously, warming all it touches. And most importantly, let peace come not from what is given in return, but from knowing that your heart remains open, even when others close theirs. That kind of love, the kind of love that asks for nothing but giving it all, is the kind of love that leaves a legacy. That's kind of the setup, friend free of charge, reclaiming what you gave away, a late life awakening. There comes a time in life, a quiet turning point, when you realize that giving has become a lifelong habit. For years, even decades, you have devoted your time, energy, and love to others. Family, work, relationships, responsibilities. You've taken it all on, and you gave freely, believing that what you invested would eventually come back to you in kind. But as life's sunset comes, a deeper truth begins to emerge. If you don't reclaim your own energy, no one else will. This is not about shutting down or becoming bitter. It's not a withdrawal from the world. It's a return to oneself, a strong action, not a retreat. It's about prioritizing your happiness, not as an afterthought, but as the foundation of a life worth living. We are conditioned to seek approval, attention, and validation even as we age. But what if instead of pursuing those things, you looked inward and asked, what brings me joy? What have I neglected for a long time? What else can be done in this life? You may be surprised by the answer. Maybe you once dreamed of painting, but life got in the way. Maybe you've always wanted to travel, but never felt like it was the right time. Or maybe something simpler, sitting on the porch with a warm cup of tea, listening to the breeze blowing through the trees. Read that book you started 10 years ago. Take a walk alone in nature, just because it feels good. These are not luxuries. They are a lifeline to your soul. Let's look at the story of Mr. Hang, a retired teacher who has devoted his career to educating young minds. For more than 40 years, he gave everything he had: time, patience, and wisdom. He stays after hours to help students in trouble. He skipped vacation to prepare lessons. He even sacrificed his personal dreams so that his students could pursue their dream. And like many selfless givers, he assumed, perhaps quietly, that when the time came, he would be surrounded by appreciation, that his students will remember, that his family would stay close together, that the school to which he gave so much would honor his legacy. But life, as usual, continued. His students have grown up with their own busy lives. His colleagues have since retired or been replaced. His children also have families and careers to take care of. Ultimately, the school hired a younger teacher to take over his role, and the silence that followed left him more miserable than he expected. In that silence, a friend suggested something surprising. Why not pick up the violin again? It was a childhood passion, long buried under years of responsibility. At first he laughed it off. I'm too old to learn something new, he thought. His fingers were stiff, tongue felt awkward, and music doesn't come easily. But gradually a miracle happened. The sounds began to blend together, not perfectly, but with soul, with meaning, with joy. For the first time in many years, Mr. Hang did not give it to anyone else. He was simply doing something for himself, and in that moment, he rediscovered something profound, a feeling of satisfaction that was all his own. Buddhism teaches practice determined deep concentration and inner stillness. When we reclaim our energy, we engage in one of the most sacred forms of self-care, not indulgence, not selfishness. Wise. Because how can we keep giving when our cup is empty? How can we bring peace to others if we forget what it feels like to be at peace within ourselves? Reclaiming your energy isn't about abandoning others. It's about returning to your center. It's about honoring all you've given. And finally, giving some back to yourself. So if you've spent your life serving others, consider this a gentle reminder. You're still allowed to grow, to explore, to start again, and it's never too late to find joy. Not for others, but for yourself. Rekindle your light, the wisdom of choosing peace and silence. There is a quiet wisdom that comes with age, a wisdom that is often overlooked in a world obsessed with doing, proving, and pleasing. For years, maybe even decades, you have been someone who has given and given your time, your attention, your energy, without hesitation. You are a steady flame in the lives of others, always there to light the way. But what happens when the candle has burned to the wick? When the light you generously give to others barely shines for yourself? Here's the truth. Your energy, your peace, your sense of self, these are not infinite resources. They must be nurtured, protected, and replenished. Self-care is not indulgence. It's not selfish. How wise And if no one has told you this, it's never too late to reclaim what's yours. You still have the right to be happy, to be creative, to be lonely. You have the power to let go of your constant need for approval and start shaping a life that feels right to you, unapologetically and without regret. Imagine the next chapter of your life not as an ending but as an awakening. Refocus. It's time to cut out the noise and tune into what truly nourishes your soul. And one of the most overlooked yet transformative powers on this journey: silence. Silence is often misunderstood, especially among young people. When we're young, we feel the urge to speak up, to explain ourselves, defend our choices, prove our worth. We speak out in the hope of being heard, believing that only words can shape reality. But over time, the realization deepens. Most people don't listen to understand, they listen to respond. The conversation becomes a battlefield. Words become weapons, and more often than not, no one actually wins. Buddhism teaches that saying correct words, or in Sama German, is one of the eightfold paths leading to enlightenment. That doesn't mean never speaking, but speaking with purpose, when words are rooted in truth, kindness and clarity. When they don't, silence is the wiser course. There is a story about an elderly monk who was once a respected scholar, famous for his brilliant philosophical debates. For many years he engaged in endless discussions, believing in the power of intellect and argument. One day, an arrogant young student confronted him, determined to challenge the monk's wisdom. The boy spoke very quickly, eager to prove the old man wrong, offering complex ideas proudly. The monk just listened, occasionally nodding and never interrupted. Finally, when the student finished speaking, waiting for a sharp rebuttal, the old monk smiled and gently said, "Thank you for sharing your thoughts." Then he walked away. The student was stunned. He had expected resistance, argument, confirmation of his outburst, but he didn't meet anyone. There is only silence. And over time, he realized the lesson hidden in that silence. Not every battle is worth fighting. Sometimes the deepest wisdom lies not in speaking louder, but in walking with grace and peace. Imagine an older man in the modern workplace trying to share his experiences with a younger colleague. The younger, ambitious man dismisses him, insisting that the world has changed, that experience is outdated. The older man can argue, can push to prove his worth, but instead he smiled and walked away, carrying his wisdom with him, without applause or validation. That is the power of silence. In a culture that prizes noise, response, and attention, choosing stillness takes great strength. To observe instead of react, to keep your peace rather than your pride, because the truth is that wisdom is not noisy. It doesn't beg for attention. So the next time you feel the need to defend yourself, prove your worth, explain your choices, pause, ask yourself, is this necessary? Will my words bring clarity or just add noise? If the answer is not clear, choose silence. Let your actions speak for themselves. Let your calmness be your presence, and let your peace be a testimony to your strength. Because the fire once lit the way for others, it still burns within you. Now it's your turn to keep it lit, because silent strength speaks louder than words. In a world addicted to noise, endless notifications, non-stop opinions, and constant pressure for feedback, it takes real strength to choose stillness. The mind today is conditioned to react, to be listened to prove a point. But silence, real, intentional silence, is not weakness. That's discipline, a skill, and most of all, it is wisdom. Silence is the ability to listen without interrupting, to observe without correction, and to let others hold their opinions without asking for approval. It knows that not everything requires a response, and that presence, a quiet, steady presence, can carry more weight than the loudest voice in the room. There is an old Zen saying, Don't speak unless you can improve your silence. Think about that for a moment. How many words spoken in pride or frustration can actually improve this moment? How often do we later regret what we said in anger or haste? True power lies not in how much you say, but in how deeply you understand, even when you don't say a word. Imagine a mother and her eldest daughter arguing. The passionate and emotional daughter accused her mother of being too controlling and overprotective. The mother, hurt by the words, feels the urge to defend herself, to explain, to fight back. But instead, she didn't. She listens. She let her daughter talk. She let the emotions move through the air and settle. And when her daughter finally quieted down, the mother simply said, "I hear you." That moment of silent acknowledgement is more healing than any lengthy excuse could be, because silence, when coupled with presence, is not empty. It's very powerful. It holds space for truth, for emotion, for understanding. Now, silence does not mean passivity. There are times when words must be spoken, when injustice must be spoken out, when truth must have a voice. But the question is, why are we talking? Are our words rooted in clarity and kindness? Or are they motivated by ego, the need to be right, or the fear of not being heard? Wisdom lives in pause, knowing that some conversations aren't worth the effort and some arguments are unwinnable. Let it go. Sometimes the peace of mind you get as you move forward is far more valuable than the fleeting satisfaction of proving a point. So the next time you feel the urge to defend yourself, explain your values, win an argument, pause. Ask yourself, is this necessary? Will my words bring clarity or just add noise? And if the answer is not clear, let your wisdom speak in your stillness. Let your silence hold ground where words can only distract it. Because in the end, it's not the loudest voice that holds the power. It's the voice that only speaks up when it really matters. This same principle applies not only in conversations, but also in how we guide others in life. There is a deep instinct within us, especially as we get older and more experienced, to step in and fix things for others. We see a child make a choice that we know will lead to pain. We witness a friend repeating the same destructive pattern. We feel compelled to step in, protect them from suffering, share our hard-earned wisdom so they don't have to make the same mistakes. But here's the reality. Wisdom offered freely and without invitation is rarely well received. Most people have to learn by living. They must stumble on their own rock. They must feel their own falls, walk their own winding path, and learn their own lessons. What we can't do instead is keep our distance, be patient, be loving, without controlling the outcome. We can observe instead of intervening, love without trying to possess, and only speak when the moment really calls for it. That is not separation, that is wisdom, that's peace, and it's often the kindest gift we can give, not just to others, but to ourselves. Wisdom of letting go. When you love, you have to step aside. There is a natural instinct that many of us have, especially as we grow older, to want to protect those we love from making mistakes. We've weathered our own fires, learned our lessons the hard way, and when we see someone we care about rushing headlong into pain, the urge is almost unbearable. Step in, fix it, save them. But what if that urge, although rooted in love, actually does more harm than good? Even the Buddha, when asked to intervene in the disputes of others, often responded with silence, not because he did not care, but because he understood the deeper nature of suffering. Pain is a teacher, struggle to be a sculptor. It removes illusion, ignorance, and pride, shaping the soul through experience, through moments experienced, often difficult, that no one else can endure for us. If we intervene too soon, if we try to carry someone else's burden or shield them from the storm in order to shape them, we risk robbing them of their growth. Take Anand's story. He is a devoted son, helplessly watching his father gamble away their family fortune night after night. Anand pleaded, reasoned, begged. He brought logic. He appeared in pain. He even gathered relatives to help. But his father remained unchanged, trapped in his own vicious cycle of destruction. Nothing Anand said, no arguments, No emotional appeals could change his behavior. And so, with great difficulty, Anand made a painful decision. He let go, not out of resentment, but out of acceptance. Instead of trying to change his father, he turned inward. He works harder, secures his own future, and refuses to let other people's chaos determine his peace. Many years passed, then one day, when his father finally hit rock bottom, he returned, not for money, not for pity, but for understanding. Only after feeling the full weight of his own consequences was he finally ready to listen. That moment didn't come because someone saved him. It came because of someone didn't. And that is the nature of true separation, not abandonment, not indifference, but trust. Trust that the universe will unfold as it should, that each soul must learn at its own pace, in its own way. It's not easy. Watching someone suffer when we know a better way is painful. But being wise means knowing when to help and when to stand back. Just because we see the storm doesn't mean we should drag others inside. Sometimes they need to stand in the rain to understand the value of shelter. And when they do, that wisdom becomes theirs, not borrowed, not counted, but earned. Separation doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop trying to control. You let love exist without possession. You offer support without direction. You don't focus on changing others, but on what to be at your fingertips. Your peace, your choices, your reactions. Imagine you are holding a bird in your hand. Squeeze too hard and you'll crush it. Hold it gently. It can stay, or it can fly away. But either way, it's still free. And so are you. Or imagine an old fisherman living on the bank of a river. Every day he witnessed young men trying to swim across the water. He knows the dangers. He knows the safer route downstream. Many times he felt like shouting, guiding, saving them from pain. But he remained silent because he understood something deeper. Some lessons must be learned firsthand. And over time, those young swimmers get stronger. They found their way. They learned to respect the present not because someone warned them, but because they lived. There is an art to stepping back, in allowing life to unfold. Not everything needs our voice. Not every battle is ours to fight. So the next time you feel the urge to fix, rescue, pause, and ask yourself, am I doing this for them, or for my own discomfort with their struggles? Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step aside and trust. Let go of the need to be recognized, freedom to live for yourself. There comes a moment in life, often later than we expect, when we look in the mirror and ask ourselves a simple but profound question. Why am I still trying to prove myself? From an early age, we are trained to seek approval. We are praised when we achieve, accepted when we fit in, and loved when we meet the expectations of others. And so we chase that feeling of being seen, of being acknowledged, of being appreciated. This need for approval permeates everything. The way we dress, the careers we choose, the relationships we maintain, long after they no longer feel right. But over the years, as the noise of the outside world begins to subside and our role begins to fade, a deeper truth emerges. No amount of external approval can bring lasting peace. Consider Lila's story. She is a good daughter, a trustworthy wife, and a selfless mother. Since childhood, she has lived to make others proud. She follows the rules, keeps the peace, and silences her own dreams in favor of the dreams of others. As a wife, she becomes the breadwinner of the family, sacrificing her ambitions to support her husband's path. As a mother, she gave everything: time, energy, love, so that her children could develop well. For many years, she never questioned it. It feels like her duty, her identity. But then at age 60, her husband passed away. Her children, grown up and busy with their own lives, no longer need her like before. For the first time in decades, Lila finds herself truly alone. Just her, a quiet house, and a gnawing awareness. She never really lived for herself. Every decision she makes, every sacrifice, every choice, is tied to what others need or expect. And now, with no one left to please, she stood silent and asked, "Who am I when no one is watching?" It's a question many of us avoid, but eventually have to face. The truth is that the more we seek approval, the more we give away our power. And the more we give away our power, the further away we are from who we truly are. Buddha taught that true happiness does not come from being understood by others, but from understanding oneself. Imagine you are carrying a heavy bag on your back, filled with the opinions, judgments, and expectations of everyone around you. Every step is harder than it needs to be. Every decision is clouded by what will they think. Now imagine putting that bag down, even if just for a moment. The lightness, the freedom, the relief of finally being able to walk my own path without burdens. It is the freedom to let go and accept. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean isolating yourself or closing your heart. It means redefining your value, not by how others see you, but by how you see yourself. It means asking, do I like who I am? Am I living in accordance with my values? It's a shift from looking outward for validation to looking inward for acceptance. And in that change there is liberation. Take the story of Andan, a former businessman who spent most of his life building an empire. He was admired, respected, and successful by every social measure. However, despite all the titles and wealth, he often felt empty. There's always another deal to close, another person to impress, another bar to meet. Finally, tired of the chase, he left everything. He moved to a small village, traded his suits for simple clothes, and adopted a slower, quieter lifestyle. For the first time, he didn't perform. He is not after anyone's approval. He wakes up in the sun, works with his hands, and finds joy in the smallest things. A shared smile, the sound of rain, a meal he cooks himself. When a former colleague visited and asked him if he remembered his reputation, Andan just smiled and replied, "I have nothing to prove, and it's the most freeing thing I've ever known." So ask yourself, what would your life be like if you stopped seeking approval? Which dreams will you reclaim? What truth will you ultimately live by? Because in the end, the only person you really need is you. You have nothing to prove. The power of choosing yourself. Imagine waking up every morning not to prove something to the world, but simply to survive. Wake up with the sun, work with your hands, and find joy in the smallest, quietest moments of life. This is the new rhythm of Andan's days. After years of chasing fame and recognition, he let it all go. And when a former colleague asked him if he remembered the position he once held, Andan just laughed and said, "I have nothing to prove, and that is my greatest achievement." We spend most of our lives performing, trying to meet expectations, please others, and collect approval like trophies on a shelf. We chase applause, admiration, and validation, believing that when we reach a certain point, we will finally feel complete. But approval is an illusion, fleeting, always dependent on the changing preferences of others. It is never solid, never sustainable. True peace, which grounds and sustains us, doesn't come from being seen. It comes from seeing ourselves clearly and accepting what we find. Self-acceptance is unshakable. That is the foundation of inner peace. Think of the great spiritual teachers, the monks who hide in silence, the sages who choose solitude on mountaintops. They don't care about being honored. They do not define their worth through external validation. They found something much more precious, satisfaction within themselves. Giving up the need for approval is not something that can happen overnight. It is a process, a quiet inner journey that requires patience, reflection, and courage. It means being able to say, "I am enough," even when the world tells you to do more, prove more. It means choosing authenticity over acceptance and choosing peace over performance. It means asking yourself honestly, what would my life be like if I stopped seeking approval? What decisions would I make if I didn't care what other people thought? Then slowly, deliberately, start walking in that direction. Because the truth is, the only person whose approval you really need is you. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is an act of self-esteem. Many of us have long been taught that prioritizing our own happiness means turning our backs on others. Taking care of yourself is somehow an act of neglect. But that's a myth. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Your mind, your body, your spirit, they need care. Just as a plant needs water, sunlight, and space to grow, you need time, silence, and intention to replenish your inner resources. So ask yourself, when was the last time I really checked in with myself? Not just physically, but also emotionally, mentally, spiritually. When was the last time you sat quietly and listened, not to someone else's request but to your own heart, your own needs, your own voice? Life has a way of reeling us in with obligations, responsibilities, and the constant pull of external expectation. But now, right now, you are being called back to yourself. And as you enter the next chapter of your life, remember this: you don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need permission to prioritize your health. Your happiness is not a gift to be given. It is a truth that needs to be affirmed. Let go of resentment. Release the weight of unmet expectations. Give yourself the freedom to step fully into your own presence. After years, even decades, of shaping yourself to meet the needs of others, now is the time to shape your life around your own needs, not motivated by obligation or guilt, but rooted in joy, in stillness, in the simple yet powerful act of being yourself. There is a quiet power in choosing yourself, not out of rebellion, but out of love. Love for the person you have become, love for the journey you have walked, and the love for life is still ahead, waiting to be lived on its own terms. The river of life flows forward, and so should you, not chasing approval, not seeking validation, but moving with the ease and grace of one who has realized that peace is not found outside. It is cultivated within. So take a deep breath, feel the weight being lifted from your shoulders, and enter your next chapter with clarity, courage, and unwavering self-esteem. Because of your happiness, it is not an argument. It is yours to own, yours to create, and yours to embrace. As we move through life, especially after the age of 30, we often realize how much we have devoted to others. We have worked hard, loved deeply, and silently sacrificed, all the while chasing approval and validation that may never come. But one of the greatest truths we can grasp is this: you have nothing to prove. True peace is not found in applause. It is found in authenticity. When we stop living to meet other people's expectations and start honoring our own values, we regain our energy, joy, and voice. You don't need anyone's permission to choose peace, say no, or finally say yes to yourself. That's not selfishness. That's wisdom, and it's never too late to start. So today, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would my life be like if I stopped seeking approval? If this message speaks to you, like this video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and leave a comment. What are you willing to reclaim for yourself? Don't forget to subscribe, because here we're together on the path to healing, wisdom, and inner strength.